the news in the wrestling world that changed the landscape. Not the companies maybe that we thought, but WWE and TNA striking a massive deal over this past week. It's a multi-year partnership, creating crossover opportunities for NXT and TNA stars. We saw that this past week at TNA Genesis, where you had Cora Jade show up. The NXT Tag Team Championship is going to get defended on TNA this week. Jared, we know that we've seen Jordan Grace on NXT this past year. Joe Hendry showing up in NXT was one of WWE's most viewed videos in their social media's history. So we've seen little glimpses of this, which just begs the question, Jared, how much more can this change the landscape over this multi-year partnership that WWE and TNA are going to be able to just completely benefit from on both sides?
Well, perfect example was last night. I messaged Chris and I messaged Andy both to see how I could try to watch the TNA pay-per-view. And I could not tell you how long it's been since I've even thought about a TNA pay-per-view, much less actually considered buying one.
Right.
And so I think it's going to, I think AEW, man, they've created a monster, and it's going to be hard to beat this monster. And we might just see AEW go under a lot quicker than we thought with this partnership, man.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, AEW is benefiting from the Turner money and all that kind of stuff, just like WCW was for a long time. So this new deal that they signed is going to keep them around for a little bit. But I think you're absolutely right, man. This gives WWE the huge upper hand, because we saw not long ago, I think it was in 2021, that AEW and TNA were working together a whole lot. You know, Christian won the TNA championship from Kenny Omega on the first episode of Rampage, if I'm not mistaken. And then Christian was on the show. We saw Kenny Omega on the show. So we saw some crossover there, but it just all of a sudden stopped. And now we're getting this full-time thing with WWE and TNA. Let me tell you who it really benefits TNA in a way. Like let's say, for example, Jordan Grace just wrestled her last match last night at Genesis. It's very common knowledge that her contract is out. She's most likely going to go to WWE. She's most likely going to be in the Rumble, and she's going to provide some star power in the women's division that they need, whether it's on Raw or SmackDown. I think her time in NXT is probably done. She's probably skipping that and going on to the main roster. But here's how it benefits TNA. Jared, in this multi-year partnership, it's not going to hurt Jordan Grace one bit to walk back in the door of TNA. These TNA stars that might be leaving for WWE can easily go back and make one-off appearances. And I'll tell you what else it does. This opens the doors. We're going to see the NXT tag team titles defended on TNA programming this week. Those titles can change hands now because these companies are now linked together, and we can have crossover whenever we want. So NXT champions could be TNA superstars and vice versa. That's super cool because now it's unpredictable.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy, man, to see exactly what they do with this. And if you look at it, Tony Khan was kind of the one that brought all of this, like working with other companies kind of into the mainstream. Yep. And I mean, we've kind of seen what it's turned into. I think that TNA is going to become interesting to watch. NXT is going to become interesting to watch, and it'll be interesting to watch how that affects the main product, the main ship that WWE sells. Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown.
We're going to get your Royal Rumble predictions here in just a few minutes, but man, when Joe Hendry's music hits at the Royal Rumble in 2 weeks, it's going to be a pop like we haven't heard in a long freaking time, dude. And the same could be said if Jeff Hardy's music hits. A WWE legend who is currently one half of the TNA Tag Team Champions with his brother Matt Hardy. Just so many possibilities, dude, because the agreement says NXT events, WWE PLEs. So they're not necessarily saying that they can appear on Raw or SmackDown, but WWE PLEs, just read it right there. You may as well just put Royal Rumble right there because it's going to happen, dude. And that doesn't, that doesn't discount the women of TNA getting involved in the women's Royal Rumble and stuff like that. So they hit the nail on the head as far as the timing of announcing this. And I just think it's green grass going forward. It's nothing but positive. How can it be a negative?
Oh, yeah. And I guess my train of thought was you have people in TNA that become such big stars or in NXT that when the time comes, then they go up to the main ship of WWE and then you see them on Raw and SmackDown. But yeah, man, it's going to be, it just makes everything so much more interesting. It opens the doors to all these dream matches that everybody talks about and used to everybody, all we could do is just talk about them. Well, now you can actually see them play out and you can see like maybe even storylines with it instead of just like, oh, how I keep kind of ragging on AEW, but instead of how Tony Khan just throws a match out there with no build and he's like, oh, it's a super match. It's a dream match. We have to do it right now. And there's no build to it. Well, these things can actually have a build to them, which is incredible.
Because listen, CM Punk versus Seth Rollins would have been absolutely incredible the minute CM Punk walked in the door at Survivor Series last year. But I mean, blessing in disguise that he tore his tricep, and we've built this story since November of last year, and now we're seeing the effects of it. And like, yes, it's a dream match. It would have been really good in November of 2023, but man, the Raw debut on Netflix, we were clamoring for it because they built it. That's how you build stories, Tony Khan. Okay. All right. I'll get off now. Box. We appreciate you guys being tuned in, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the replay. Either way, drop your comments, drop your questions, just like Christian did. Drop them in the chat. We will do our best to answer those. Even if you don't drop them in live, we go back and we answer those. Try our best to get to all of them. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.